Good evening. I call the special meeting of the Ames City Council for Tuesday, February 4th to order. Welcome, everybody. And this is when we get to hear from all our departments and review budgets. So I'll turn it over to Steve.
Yeah, we appreciated the opportunity to provide at the 20,000 foot level, the budget and the overview of the utilities and property taxes. And as you said, we're going to give you an opportunity to review with the departments, all the different programs and activities we have. They're going to try to focus on what they do. There's obviously financial implications to what they're offering, but we're going to try to focus on service levels and performance, I think, more than dollars. But if you have any questions, please feel free to jump in and ask them, because we want to make sure you understand you and the public understand what they're getting for their dollar. And we'll start with the library, which is a good place to start, don't you think?
I do. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Sheila Schofer. I'm the director of the library, and I'm joined with Alyssa Dornick. She is our resource services manager. So we're going to split it up tonight. But I'd like to take a moment as we start to thank the council and city leadership for the opportunity to discuss our budget and the impact that funding has on our Ames community. Libraries are a key component in providing critical information, resources, and spaces for learning and connecting not only to the world of ideas, but to our fellow community members. And in budget-conscious times, libraries offer a lot of bang for their buck in that we serve all ages from birth to seniors with a broad range of services. So your commitment and support helps make this happen. And we, as library staff and community members, appreciate that. Programs and services partnerships regularly align with city goals, and so we'll touch on that a little bit as we go through. So I'll kick us off. Our library budget pages begin on 182. So the library uses its strategic plan to guide our ongoing work, and we're excited to say we've just launched a brand new plan with input from the community gathered at 5 stakeholder groups with educators, nonprofits, social services, cultural organizations, community leaders, and then a makeup session. And some of you, or maybe organizations you're affiliated with, might have participated in that. We also had 4 public input sessions. So 2 of those were at the library, and we aimed for evening and a Saturday to increase accessibility. We also did 2 out in the community, 1 at the farmers market, 1 at Iowa State. We also had responses from nearly 600 surveys and then a variety of staff, board, and volunteer input, including from our teen advisory group and our teen volunteers. So much like our previous plan, we know this work will guide us in doing thoughtful, challenging work and make an impact. Our plan focuses on key areas: connecting Ames, which is our more people-focused and kind of making those connections. Serving Ames is just more around maintaining our wide range of services we offer and marketing them in new and creative ways. And we're kind of excited about that part. A Place for Ames focuses on initiatives related more to our physical space to ensure they're safe and welcoming. And we categorize each of these into core areas: core, build, and reach, to kind of give us, recognize that we need to maintain key services, a little space to build and maybe continue on the work we started previously, and reach. And one of our reach goals is a sustainable library program. There's some initiatives around that, and we feel like that aligns very well with the city and council goals. We'll move next to the library administration pages in your packet. The library administration team has responsibility for the overall staffing and operations of the library and includes the key teams of IT, volunteer resources, and building maintenance. Our goal is to provide safe and inviting space for the 25,000 people who come in every month. To help maintain such a heavily used space, we are finalizing a carpet replacement project for our entryway, the youth, and the adult public service areas. Staff were thoughtful in keeping service disruptions to a minimum while this work was done and found creative ways to meet the need of the community. We are nearly finished. The youth area opened last week, and you see a picture there. We have lots of great pictures. And then the adult services area will open tomorrow. So I'm excited for that, and that's several weeks ahead of schedule. So we know our community is eager to get back in, and we are eager to have them. It was fascinating and complex process to move huge ranges of shelves with the items still on them. We worked with Bill and on the communications team to put up cameras in both youth and adult areas to capture a time-lapse video of the project. So we're anxious to see how that turned out. dedicated staff. As a community-focused department, open 70 hours over 7 days a week, library staff are our single biggest asset. Supporting early literacy, technology, robust collections, responsive community programs, and safe, welcoming spaces, our dedicated and well-trained staff are absolutely critical to the value we provide our community. We commit to supporting them through professional development, bringing in speakers, utilizing online training, and attending conferences. We've launched and will continue to offer library-wide training around customer service and serving vulnerable populations. We participate in the city's employee development classes on topics like leadership skills and the recent C3 training on de-escalation that we found very helpful. We're also exploring opportunities for job shadowing and cross-work group staff development. Our volunteers are very special to us at the library. They play a critical role in supporting library service, and we know that we play an important part in their lives by supporting meaningful connection in a way that lets them be valued and active contributors in their community. We had 344 volunteers overall, and that include 90 youth volunteers. And our youth volunteers play a valuable role in our ability to offer summer meals. College interns and returning youth volunteers mentor younger youth and build valuable leadership skills. You can see the crowd in the picture on the right as many families attend a morning story time or a program and then stay for lunch. In summer of 2024, we served 5,318 meals. This is funded through our Ames Public Library Friends Foundation with generous support from Chevron REG and Mary Greeley Medical Center. Our meeting rooms are key resources for community members to book spaces for their club meetings, but also for library programs and events with various city departments and other community partners. The photo on the left was a gathering this fall of stakeholders and providers serving homeless community members. The photo on the right is one of our conversation circles. We offer English, Spanish, Chinese, German, Russian, and French. Also under the library administration team is IT, who help us keep pace with changing community needs. We conduct regularly scheduled maintenance and upgrades to our wide-ranging technology. We updated cameras and software this past year. And through our Friends Foundation, the library received a $25,000 grant from the Story County Community Foundation to check out tablets, a new offering, and expand our access to our hotspots at Ames Public Library and at the other 10 libraries in Story County. So it was a collaborative grant. We also applied for a large federal digital equity grant with regional partners and MIPA to expand this further and offer related programs and training, but we recently found out that we did not get that big one. But it's still good to know what opportunities are out there and to be aware and try for some creative funding that way. Next up, I'm going to hand it over to Alyssa.
Thanks. Next up on your budget pages is our resource services team, who are responsible for all things collection. We make sure that our diverse community has easy access to responsive collections.
Does she have a microphone close to her?
Can you lean in?
Is that,
There.
Whoa.
That's better. Thank you.
let me scooch closer. Okay. So our resource services department makes sure that our diverse community has access to our responsive collections. We purchase and catalog new materials in a variety of formats to be our new physical books, special use kits, or our downloadable ebooks, our audio and videos. Well, print is absolutely not going to go away anytime. Downloadable content, and particularly e-audio content, continues to increase in popularity. Circulation data, patron requests, costs, and availability of materials are all factors that we consider as we finesse our budget and shift to meet the community's needs. And to better reach our newbie audiences, the community relations team has tried a range of new approaches, including video recorded book talks done in collaboration with the city's media team that air on Ames television and through social media. The picture on the left is the new 5-foot ad on a kiosk in the mall near the movie theater. And this coming year, we plan to explore creative ways to show our community a look behind the scenes on how we order books, how the material sorter machine works, and what goes into planning programs. The community relations team did the marketing and graphics for our second year-round adult reading program called 12 to Try that encourages people to read outside their usual picks. And we are applying for a library marketing award for this initiative. We've also revamped the look of our holds notices to customers to be more visual, and we'll be looking at adding an email journey, which are periodic emails for new cardholders to highlight services and resources that are available through the library. Next up in your budget pages is youth services, and we'll start with some of the highlights in our youngest customers. We are committed to creating a rich literary environment that also serves as a vital social gathering space for young families, and our creative play area and 9 weekly story times provide opportunities for young children and their caregivers to connect and learn together. The youth team also plays an important role in student success, be that through promotions of our online resources like BrainFuse, which offers free live online tutoring, book flicks with read aloud, read along stories, or through fun learning events like Battle of the Books. Over 30 teams of 5th and 6th graders tested their book knowledge at the event last spring. We also support fun learning through robotics, STEM activities, and chess club, as you can see in some of these pictures. And we also partner with cultural organizations, allowing us to bring in high-quality performances from the Des Moines Metro Opera and the Story Theater Company. And sometimes we also bring in fun, which is Bluey, a super popular cartoon dog. That event and photo op drew close to 1,000 people from beyond Story County. We had activities in the auditorium and all through the youth area, while eager kids waited in line to get pictures with Bluey. After hosting a first annual county-wide baby fair and summer camp fair, we will continue this collaboration this coming spring to offer these popular events. The summer camp fair outgrew the library space and will be held in the city gym next month. The library's youth services team extends into the community as well through programs like our Project Smiles outreach that bring collections and story times each month to the 91 daycares and preschools around the community. Here are some pictures at a pre-K Project Smiles group at their library site, or at their daycare visiting the library and touring behind the scenes to see our material sorter. This initiative is turning 20 this year, and we are applying for a Library of Congress award. The other photo shows our deposit collection kits. We received a Rotary grant to bring more books to more after-school programs. A recent survey of sites showed that they were being well used and enjoyed at all of their new locations as well. The teen space extends the library as a much-needed third space in the community as well. Our new carpet and reworked furniture layout provides space for fun activities and connection. We also have a new teen services librarian who is excited to work closely with our APLY summer youth volunteers pictured here. She's already begun working closely with the teen advisory group to mentor and support them and provide leadership opportunities as they plan and host events like themed escape rooms and summer programs. We rely on our community experts to help with the programming as well, and our partnerships with Youth and Shelter Services this past year included a monthly programming series to help teens navigate mental health challenges, social media safety, building resumes, exploring career choices, and more. And with that, I will turn it back to Sheila.
All right. So we can move on to our adult services. Community-led programs like the Repair Cafe that encourages sustainable repair and reuse of household items, allows community members to actively participate and engage. Those are super popular. Creative programs like Speed Friending offer a fun and safe place to meet new people and connect. We offer this program towards the beginning of each semester. It's not limited, but kind of geared to college students. And it's coming up this Saturday, February 8th from 2 to 4. Seed Library opened in March of 2024 and had a successful season offering 500 packets. Program partnerships with Story County Extension, Master Gardeners, city departments, and community organizations allow us to offer related programming that build on the library and the city of Ames and council's sustainability goals. Social service connections. The library continues to work with local social service providers like the Bridge Home, Mary Greeley Behavioral Health, Irely Ball to support more vulnerable community members. We plan to continue our partnership with the Legal Aid of Story County to provide workshops about specific legal topics like end-of-life resources, landlord-tenant advice, and possibly record expungement. With the support of grants and the Ames Public Library Friends Foundation, the Adult Services team was able to refresh and expand collections offsite at Mary Greeley Behavioral Health, Rosedale, and the Bridge Home and Primary Healthcare Center. This is in addition to rotating monthly collections that go to multiple senior living locations in Ames. Civic engagement. The library supports civic engagement in serving as a polling site and partnering to offer voter registration and informational programs. This year, we served as a satellite site for early voting and had record turnout, with lines wrapping around from the auditorium to the far corner of the youth area. I don't know if any of you voted there, but those lines were long. Our Idea Center, other innovative offerings include the Idea Center. It's a digital media center that offers community members the ability to preserve their memories with special equipment and software to convert VHS and cassettes, photos, slides to a digital format. We hope to explore offering sound recording opportunities for oral storytelling and podcasts in the future. In April of 2024, the Ames Public Library was designated as the Iowa Center for the Book. It's a Library of Congress designation. We received funding to support author programs for the Great Read from Great Places, adult and youth selections, and to attend the National Book Festival in Washington, D.C., which was amazing. That's like hundreds of thousands of people who come out for books. It's kind of cool to see. We hope to promote the program further and foster relationships with authors and local publishers. We can turn next to our customer account services. So our customer account services team are the first line of welcome. They welcomed us there. In support of the library's access and inclusion goals, they continue to lead in translating information about library services. And they are the center of all the moving pieces that connect our customers to the materials they want, from holds to shelving to setting up new library accounts. Nearly 1 million items were checked out last year. That's an average of 2,734 items a day. And it goes beyond books. They support the checkout of park packs, Wi-Fi hotspots, STEM kits, and more. Our bookmobile drivers help take our service out into the community through regular weekly stops in different neighborhoods, as well as special events like the Farmers Market, National Night Out, and the Juneteenth Community Celebration. We tried a new schedule this past summer that allowed us more flexibility to go new places like parks, summer school, and camps. The bookmobile service will have its 60th anniversary in 2026. Our current vehicle will be about 11 years old this year. So we're starting to consider features for a replacement vehicle in the next 5 years or so. All these incredibly engaging and responsive services are designed, planned, and executed by our talented and dedicated staff with the support of our generous volunteers. In a service industry, your staff are your service and are just as critical, if not more so, as our physical space and our collections of materials. Thank you. That's a shot from our staff day. We get together for shared learning.
Thank you. Questions?
I'll start off. Sheila, first of all, this is just one of my favorite presentations, just because of the innovations. Every year we get a chance to sort of see what's new and what's coming. And so thank you for the energy and innovation that your leadership has provided. Could you give us just sort of a 10,000 foot perspective on what's going on with library funding generally across the state? Are we seeing some headwinds that libraries are facing? Because I'm so proud of our Ames Public Library, and it's just helpful for us to get a sense of what our peer libraries are dealing with.
I think I think some places, I mean, you're aware of the tax implications, and so I think some communities are feeling that more than others. I connect with we have a group we call IUPLA. It's Iowa Urban Public Libraries, and so like the 9 or so largest libraries, and different ones have been affected. I think the ones that had levies are probably feeling it the most. And I think this is kind of a watch and see year. Feeling some maybe having to adjust some things, not too drastic yet, but
This is where I get very defensive of our budget process, because this community deeply values our library. And the idea of the legislature doing anything to threaten the programming we do, I mean, now you're not my friend. And so we really have to protect our library. So, and I wanted to point out, I'm always amazed at the number of volunteers. And not only does that benefit our library, but like you said, it also benefits the individuals. Those kids are getting a sense of civic involvement and community service at an early age that I think is very formative for their entire lifetime. And then I wanted to ask 2 follow-up questions. So we've had an influx of refugees, and we're very excited that Ames can be a place of invitation and welcoming to. We've had a number of Ukrainian families, for example. Could you give the council a sense of the ways in which our library is thinking about its services with respect to these refugee families?
I think we try to be that welcoming space. We always promote customer service in that way, and you can see our translations and things like that when you first walk in, kind of sets that tone. In terms of programming, we have one that's called the International Family Meetup, and so it's kind of an informal space. They usually have something more low key, maybe a snack or something like that, to just kind of engage in kind of to meet other families. And it's small, but we're working with different departments at the university who cater to international students, and just trying to kind of keep building it word of mouth. And so it's interesting to see that grow. I think our language, they're not classes, they're conversation groups, which is also a little more informal. So there's one in English, so you can practice your English, but I mentioned we have Spanish, Chinese, Russian, several.
It just seems like our public library would be a very important frontline point of contact for new families, immigrants, and refugees to the community. And so I love just how robust your programming and the intentionality, I think that's the word I've been looking for, that you bring to this. Hard question. So last year we saw an increase of the homeless around the library that we have never seen before. Give us a sense of just your perspective as the director of just how, if at all, how that's impacted library services.
Can I just take a quick step back to your
Please.
other one? Because we do have, we partner with the schools and their English language learner events, and we're having an after hours event for families. I think it's coming this Friday.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's back to your previous question. In the homeless community, how we're handling that. I think we're always that welcoming space. We train our staff. I think all professional librarians are trained to, and all our staff really, to that you don't have judgment. That you don't ask, any question is legitimate, any person's information need is legitimate. And so I think that precedent is set. We build relationships with people. I think they value our space and tend to treat it with respect. So sometimes maybe when Parks and Rec saw some challenges, we didn't see that at the same level. But people come, people who are going through a hard time in their life come with the stress of that. And so I think our biggest thing is to train our staff on good de-escalation, so that we know how to broach those conversations if we do have to correct behavior or ask someone to, move to a different area. So we have a person in charge team, and we have really worked hard to support each other and do regular check-ins and kind of tag team when we maybe have a more challenging interaction to have. I think some of the training, the city, I said we went to that C3 de-escalation training. We also subscribe to one who's known in the library field, and we subscribe to that online content and have had all staff take that together. So, and I think the work we've been doing with Pa, who's kind of taken the lead from the city manager's office, is helping to bring those conversations together. So I could tell, even though the consultant's just coming on and doing that work, I can already tell that some relationships have been fostered among different providers.
Yeah, well, I know I speak for the council. We appreciate the kindness and grace that you show to everyone, regardless of their situations. And finally, I'm blown away by the number of meals that you serve. And could you just give us a sentence or two about who we're serving with those meals? I try to attend one of those this summer just to visit and see what's going on, and I'm always blown away. But could you give us pull back the curtain just a little bit on that?
I think it's a wide range of families. It's not always, the people in most need, but they are certainly there too. But I think that's nice, and that there's no stigma to coming. It's everybody who's using the library. And like I said, we plan our programs before or after. So it's often you'll see someone come for story time, and then they're kind of hanging out, talking with other families, and then they'll all go into lunch together. And the teens who run it, that's our youth volunteers, they love it and they take it seriously. And they are, because we have repeat volunteers year after year, they are pros at handling it. It's nice to be able to offer it. It was originally part of a USDA program. We are not, even though we tried many different ways, and along with United Way, to kind of like tell our story and say why we should be funded, there's just strict federal rules there. And so we felt that if we could, we would continue to offer it. And we're lucky that we have had corporate funding and Friends Foundation funding to help us do that.
These are kids who might not otherwise have a meal like that in the summer because there's not school lunches. And so I'm really proud of this. I personally was heavily impacted by a public library growing up. And so this is personal for me that we have a library like this serving our community. So again, thanks for your presentation today. Really encouraging.
Other questions?
Sheila, I'd like to ask a couple things about the bookmobile.
Okay.
So we appear to be continuing to grow the number of bookmobile visits. Is that because of this new, more flexible scheduling? Are you going more places, or is it just that more people are showing up?
It's more, probably a little bit of both. I think our school year one is our pretty regular stops. It's in the summer where we were more flexible, so we stepped back from some of the schools because sometimes they don't have the same demand. But we hit some of the parks and some of the other special camps and things like that. So I think that's helped us foster new relationships. And the bookmobile's exciting. Kids love it. We have adults reach out to us. That's probably one of the biggest things I hear stories of someone who had a special story about the bookmobile at some point in their life. So, I think getting out to more outreach events has certainly helped. But our regulars at our different stops too definitely value. They have this usually the same driver, and so they build relationships with the staff.
I always enjoy the bookmobile. So the bookmobile has been around. The current one has been around longer than I've been on council, which makes it relatively venerable. So 11 years old, you said. How do we replace that? Is that one of those fleet vehicles, or is this something that's paid for by the Friends? Or
so we've been paying in to an account so that when the time came, we had some money there. So we've been paying into that. We were lucky that Fleet does a great job in maintaining it. So I think it'll be like when parts aren't available anymore, there's certain things that go awry because they are really helpful with helping us maintain that. So we know we're building money in a fund. I know our Friends Foundation realized the power of the bookmobile and that people love it. And I think they could support us. We talked about that when the time comes that maybe it's like, to show that the city's been responsible about that investment and we've been responsible in saving for it, but that there could be an opportunity to say, but help us buy a fresh new collection for it, or help us, do a year's worth of programming with it. So I think there could be a community ask there too, because there is such goodwill for it.
And is the garage on the newer building working out well?
It is. It's pretty cool. It could be. You can pull through. There's a door on either side. If you've toured, you can pull right through. So that helps that you don't have to back out. But they go through training, and our drivers are pros.
Don't let Smiles drive. That's my tip.
Or the pigeon, right?
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to utilities program.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. It is my pleasure to present to you the operating budget request from the Water and Pollution Control Department. If you're following along in the budget book, it begins on page 84. Before I get into the budget, though, I want to acknowledge the leadership team from the department. They are the ones that not only did the work of creating the budget, they also do the hard work of actually implementing the budget. So along with me is Parul Baranwal, which you met when we were doing the CIP discussions a couple weeks ago. Parul's our assistant director. Calvin Fort, wave your hand there. Calvin is the water plant superintendent. Gary Eschelman is the water plant assistant superintendent. Tyler Vermeer is the WPC facility superintendent. And Mark Jones is the assistant superintendent at the Water Pollution Control Facility. Formally introducing to you the first time, Maureen Maroney. Maureen is our new laboratory supervisor, taking over for Mary Ann after she retired last fall. And Jake Sisson is the supervisor in the water meter division. So on page 84, it shows that we've got 39 full-time employees in the department. I just want to acknowledge that in the budget is also anywhere between 10 and 13 part-time positions, depending on what time of year we're at. Most notably, the student operators that are helping to operate the facilities, both drinking water and the water pollution control facility. One other new face I'll introduce to you, because I saw him in the audience here tonight, is Laramie Heiser. Laramie is our new environmental engineer. This is week 2 for Laramie. So he's here learning what this budget thing is all about with us. So page 86 is the administrative program for the department. And that administrative function is really broken into 2 main aspects. There's the business aspects and the technical support. Over the last year, we've invested a lot of time monitoring, commenting on, and responding to new regulations. There was just a slew of new rules coming out at the federal level from EPA in the last year. Included in there were new cybersecurity rules, new lead and copper revisions, a new consumer confidence report rule, and a new maximum contaminant level, a suite of maximum contaminant levels for PFAS compounds. As you look at the budgeted expenses on page 86, staffing vacancies are the reason that you see the current year personnel services expenses down compared to the adopted. We are anticipating having all of those filled by the time we start the next budget year. And a big part of the work of the administrative division is administering all of the capital improvement plan projects. So all of the cost for the construction of those are in the CIP budget, but the staff that's implementing that is a part of the operation budget, and a big chunk of that is in the administrative group. So we help coordinate out of the admin team a lot of our customer outreach events that we participate in every year. Some of the examples from the past year included the July 4th parade, participating at National Night Out, serving water at the halfway point for Midnight Madness, a number of sustainability events on the Iowa State campus. We participated in a kind of a pop-up event out in Northridge Heights in the fall, along with Electric. We called it the Rock the Block pop-up event. Of course, the city's flagship sustainability event, the Eco Fair, every fall. And then there's the publicity that you just can't plan for and you can't buy. If you watched the ISU football game and the bowl game, the Pop-Tarts, over and over, the announcers were talking about tap water in Ames. And I think that just really goes to show how much drinking water is a part of the fabric of the Ames community. So page 88 is the water treatment plant operations budget. This encompasses the full management of the treatment. So the source water supply from the wells, the treatment process itself, and then the delivery of that finished water into the distribution system being high service pumps, booster pump stations, and elevated storage tanks. And when you think about a customer's expectations of their drinking water, it really boils down to three priorities for them. They want their water to be safe, they want the water to be reliable, and they want the water to be affordable. So I'll touch on each of those three things in the context of the operating budget. The first is safety. We strive to meet not only the letter of the law, but we also seek to meet the spirit and the intent behind the law. And as new and emerging regulations unfold, we're always trying to monitor well in advance so we can make adjustments proactively before new regulations take effect. For example, when we discovered that one of our wells had higher levels of PFAS in it, we shut that well off long before the EPA released their maximum contaminant levels for PFAS. And while most utilities in the country are still in the midst of their first annual monitoring program to be able to confirm whether or not they can comply with EPA's new maximum contaminant level, we knew immediately that we complied because we had been testing for years and we had the data already in hand to know. Similarly, when the new lead standards were released late last year, we already knew that we complied with the lowered action level because we had been testing again for years. That new lead regulation required a service line inventory to be completed by last fall. We actually finished our first inventory in 2016 and posted it to the website. We didn't need a rule to tell us that was helpful to our customers. We did it because it was the right thing to do. So whether it's bacteria, whether it's lead, whether it's PFAS, disinfection byproducts, any other regulated contaminant, Ames Water meets all state and federal requirements, and customers can be assured of the safety of their drinking water. The second priority for customers is that the water be reliable, and that can take a couple of different meanings. Reliability really means that customers can count on the water system to function when they need it, and that requires the system to be resilient both to natural disasters and to man-made disasters. So we have had for years a risk and resilience assessment and an emergency response plan. And we are actually in the process right now. Perul and Calvin are leading up that effort to update that risk and resilience assessment. That's helping us to be prepared in advance of a disaster and be ready to respond if something does happen. So over the past few years, we've installed new emergency backup power systems, and we're underway with even more. We continue to make common sense physical security improvements, like fencing, improvements to doors and door control systems, security cameras, security lighting, all of those things are being addressed. As a part of that assessment that Perul and Calvin will be doing this summer, we're going to be repeating a physical security assessment with Homeland Security. We had an individual from Homeland Security come out about 3 years ago and do a physical security assessment with us, and we're inviting him back to do that again. We're currently underway with upgrades to the process control systems, isolating the various computer networks that we have. And it's not quite as glitzy as some of those others, but even the routine things like doing periodic cleaning and maintenance on the electrical switchgear throughout all of the department is something we do to ensure the reliability of the system. Now, reliability can also mean consistency, that people get the same thing every time they turn on their tap. I think we've got a pretty good claim to that, having brought home 4 times in the last 7 years the best tasting water in Iowa. We'll actually be representing the state of Iowa later this summer, and that competition happens in Denver. So Calvin will be hauling our water samples to Denver for us. And the last thing that I mentioned is that customers expect their water to be affordable. And this is a graph you might recognize from previous budget assessments or budget presentations. You'll probably see it again in a few weeks. But it shows the results of a statewide drinking water rate survey that we conduct every year. And so every dot on there shows how much a utility in Iowa was charging customers for using 600 cubic feet of water in a month. And so you can see over time how that envelope of rates has adjusted. I pulled 2 data sets out for you. One is the dashed red line with the circular mark. That's the statewide median. So half of the utilities in Iowa are charging more than that amount, half are charging less. The other one that I pulled out is the green solid line with the triangle markers, and that is our rates. And so you can see for more than a decade, we've been running well below the statewide median on rates. In fact, in the 2024 survey, we were at the 19th percentile of drinking water rates. So while nobody likes rate increases, I think our customers and council should take great pride in the fact that we're managing our expenses in a way that keeps rate low while we're still providing award-winning water and complying with all regulatory standards and still making those common sense investments into our infrastructure. So page 92 is the water pollution control facility, and I'm just going to keep right on bragging here. What a record of excellence this facility's got. We're fortunate that we've got a metric like the National Association of Clean Water Agencies Peak Performance Award to be able to quantify the most important output from our facility, which is the quality of the water that we release back into the environment. Just 1 week ago, we submitted our application for a Platinum 35 Peak Performance Award, which recognizes the facility for 35 consecutive years without violating a numeric permit limit. So think about if you're going to take a final exam, and this exam is pass-fail, and the only way you pass is to get every question right. You have to have 100%. And there's 2,341 questions on that test. That's what it takes to pass 1 year. This facility at 35 years has passed in excess of 58,000 individual numeric limits without a violation. And I use this expression every time I talk about this, but that's the second longest record in the country. And it puts the staff that operate and maintain this facility among the very best of the best in the country at what they do. And so this really, it's not as glitzy as a drinking water award, but this is absolutely something that I think the community should take pride in. As far as activities that are dominating in the water pollution control facility, it's the nutrient reduction strategy and the modifications that are happening there. And that's going to continue to be the case for another probably year and a half. So here are just a couple of photos of the activities that are happening. This is the new administration building going up. The critical path for the project goes through this getting up as quickly as possible because the old administration building needs to be demolished so that aeration basins can be constructed in that footprint. So our contractor, Woodruff, is expecting to turn this building over to us in September. So all the exterior precast is up. You can kind of see through the windows. The interior block walls are going up. So they're making good project. There's also an addition to the sludge pumping building that was needed to handle the new aeration system going in. So there's a below grade portion and then an at grade. Below grade was all cast in place walls. Those are all done in this photo. You can see them putting up the precast now for the first floor area. A new electrical service building was needed to handle the electrical needs of the addition. And so here's just a close-up of the forming of the cast in place concrete for the subgrade of that. You can kind of see the wall sleeves there, penetrations through it being embedded ahead of the concrete pour. And then the new grit removal building. The grit removal function is being relocated out of the raw pump station to make room for new blowers and as a part of the aeration system for the new treatment process. And so this is also going up as well. So we are anticipating that project will be completed late in calendar year 26. So page 96 is the Water Pollution Control Laboratory. This is one of the premier environmental laboratories in the state. It was the first laboratory certified by the Iowa Department of Natural Resources to report water and wastewater compliance data. So while Tyler's group gets credit for complying with 58,000 numeric limits, Maureen's group gets credit for doing the analysis for 58,000 analytes. So the lab provides support for both the water and WPC facilities. In the performance measures there, we noted they're collecting and processing more than 3,000 samples a year and performing in excess of 12,000 individual analyses. They're out in the community collecting and analyzing multiple drinking water samples every week in homes and businesses to check and ensure that the water is bacterially safe and that the chemistry matches what left the treatment plant, that there's no degradation to the water quality that's occurring. They're also analyzing the samples from the water pollution control facility throughout the week to confirm that they're in compliance with that discharge permit. They're also collecting and monitoring samples from industrial dischargers to ensure that everything that's entering that facility is of a type and quantity that we can either treat or to guarantee that nothing is being discharged that would pass through our facility untreated. So just a couple examples of how they're supporting the two treatment plants. In the coming year, they're going to be completing the next round of the lead and copper testing for the drinking water system. It's probably one of the most complex sampling events that we have to do because the way the samples are collected is highly regulated, and we have to rely on the homeowners to collect the samples for us. So we have to be very specific in the instructions we give to them as to how they're collecting their samples. And then as the new water pollution control facility and those modifications come online, that facility is actually going to be operating two different treatment plants side by side for several years. So that means the number of samples that are going to flow through the lab is going to increase as that new facility comes online. On page 98 is the water metering services. And I always tell groups when I'm talking about the function here, these are our cash registers for both water and for sewer, because customers are paying for both water and sewer based on the readings of their water meter. We've talked over the last few years about how supply chain disruptions and the availability of meters and components were impacting this and our ability to get the switch over to the automatic meter reading program done. Right now, we are receiving shipments of meters and parts, but I think Jake would tell you it still feels a little tenuous. We never know for sure when that next shipment is going to arrive. But I will give Jake and his team a shout out. They figured out that instead of buying the meters and the radios pre-assembled from two different manufacturers, if we would buy them individually from their manufacturers and then assemble them together ourselves, we could speed up that supply chain. We didn't have to wait for both of them to have equipment together at the same time to take delivery. So that's just one of the creative ways that they've taken on to try to help our customers with their needs through all of these supply chain challenges. We are evaluating the impact to our metering systems as a result of electric moving to their AMI system. So you'll likely hear more from us over the next year or so as we move into that evaluation, trying to see if there's some opportunity for us to partner and piggyback on the infrastructure that electric is putting in. One last thing for water meter, I just want to give a shout out to Sean Cole, our cross connection control coordinator. He was the one who headed up the preparation of our lead service line inventory. That was a part of the EPA lead and copper rule. Certainly had a lot of help from a lot of other city groups to put it all together, but preparing that inventory was something that was done as a part of the metering services program. One last thing for you as I wrap up, we are planning to have another open house at the water plant. That's going to be on Saturday, April 19th. That's the weekend right before Earth Day, and it's not an accident that that happens that weekend. There'll be tours throughout the facility, as well as a number of displays from multiple city departments that'll be available. Those tours are going to be from 9:30 to 1 on that Saturday, but we're also going to take the lead from the fire department, who did some modified hours ahead of their open houses. So we're going to allow that opportunity from 8:30 to 9:30 for folks who want to come through, and maybe it's less crowded, it's not as noisy, or maybe they want to come through at a time where it's a little slower pace and they don't feel like they're being pushed by a crowd to come through. So from 8:30 to 9:30, we're going to offer that modified tour opportunity. So that's an overview of the programs and activities that are funded through the operating budget. And I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, John. Questions?
John, two questions. Could you give us a brief update on just the status of our aquifer? We receive questions periodically about the health of our aquifer. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we have piezometers in each of our wells, so we're able to monitor in real time the depth from the ground surface to the water table. And so we're tracking that both when the wells are off at the static level and also a pumping level when they're running. We are not seeing any sort of a significant drawdown in that aquifer. We certainly, during drought, we can see that happen. The aquifer does get stressed at times. And Calvin and his operators are watching that. If they see a particular location start to get impacted, they'll just turn that well off and let it rest, switch to a different well. That's part of the reason that we continue to construct new wells and new well fields, so we can spread that demand out over a larger area and not put such a large draw on any one place. In geologic terms, I've been told that our aquifer has water that screams by, that it moves very quickly through the formation. It's relatively plentiful. It's not very deep. So in a particular spot, there's only so much volume that's right there, but it's constantly moving by and being replenished. We have a source water management plan that I believe gives us at least a 50-year plan for source water for the community. We already own ground east of I-35, south of town for a future well field. We're working with Story County and the Iowa Department of Natural Resources to jointly purchase another block of ground on the west side of the interstate, so it could be kind of an intermediate step in between where we are now in the sports complex and where the future wells can be. So that lets us spread out the cost of the piping that gets down there, because that's really the most expensive part of a well field is the pipeline. So I feel like we've got a reliable, sustainable supply to get us through for the next 50 years.
Yep, thanks for that. And final question, you mentioned the lead pipes. Could you give us an update? We've had this not too long ago, but could you just remind us again on how many properties are impacted by these lead service pipes and what our plan is for remediation?
Yeah, so through the survey that we did, there were approximately 250 that met the EPA definition, and that was either that it was known to be lead or that it was known to be galvanized piping that was ever downstream of lead, or a service line that we don't know for sure what it is. So 248 properties that were in there. Whenever Public Works is doing a water main project and they encounter or disturb a lead service line, we replace that lead service line as a part of the project cost. We don't think it's fair to put that cost on a homeowner when we're the ones that's doing the disturbing of the pipeline. Most of the lead service lines are in the same neighborhoods that have those small water mains where Public Works is targeting. So we, on average, are getting probably around a dozen or so service lines every year that get replaced just because of that. I would say there's probably another half dozen a year that get replaced just because the homeowner either wants to replace it or there's a problem with the service line. We do have a requirement in the code that if the service line is damaged, a lead service line cannot be repaired. It has to be replaced. When you disturb a lead service line, it actually jumps the risk of lead contamination up significantly for a period of several months. And then beyond that, we've got the whole chemistry and the corrosion control in the water system that provides a barrier as well.
I thought I read in the paper that under the Biden administration, there was an administrative rule that these lead service lines had to be replaced within a certain period of time. Is that rule still in place? And if so, when do these have to be out?
So the rule has been proposed. It has an effective date of 2027. And then the requirement was that utilities replace 10% per year, which gives, effectively a requirement that they're all replaced by 2037. Included in that provision was a requirement for utilities to pay for that regardless of whether the utility owned the service line or the customer owned the service line. That specific provision it's under a petition for judicial rule by the National American Water Works Association because their opinion, EPA does not have the authority to require utilities to use public funds to replace private infrastructure. So that particular piece is under court review right now.
Okay. So, just it seemed like keep us posted on the city's approach to this. We want to make sure that our residents we can replace these service lines as soon as possible.
Yeah, and if anybody's got a service line, I would like to just give them a little bit of reassurance. Even in Flint, where they had that horrible issue several years ago, the lead lines have been in the ground for decades, 50, 60 years. It wasn't until the water chemistry changed that it became an issue. We track religiously the corrosion control status of our water to maintain a slightly depositing chemistry, which I know can be frustrating because it tends to leave, hard water on, dishes and showers and things like that. But it's there for a very specific reason. It lays that layer down inside. So if it is lead, it creates a physical barrier between the water and the lead. That's really what happened in Flint. It's when they lost control of the chemistry.
Great, thank you.
Other questions?
John, I'd like to follow up on Tim's question about the aquifer. And this is from maybe a council decision-making perspective. I see that over the last 12-month period, we have had 4 historical monthly peak demands driven by drought, I assume, and that we have been working our systems to make sure that we're, this is a technical term, throttling the wells or something. Anyway, if we were to add 1 or 2 large industrial users of water, would we still be in a position 50 years from now that this aquifer is still going to be producing enough water? If we're in drought conditions now that are causing us issues?
Yeah, so one of the interesting, I assume you're referring to that chart that's on
Yeah.
page 89 in the budget book.
I like a chart.
So last year, when we showed you that chart, we were showing peaks in the summer months, July, August, September. It's interesting this year, the drought actually pulled back a little bit this year. The demand wasn't as high. And so here, where you see those peak months, those are November, January, February. Those are winter months. So it's not really outdoor watering that was driving those peaks. That's growth in the community. That's how I interpret that. To more specifically to your question, though, about the maximum yield potential of the aquifer, I think that even if we added a couple of large water-using industries, we're not going to be in danger of depleting the aquifer. What we would need would be to drill additional wells. The water is in the aquifer. We would just have to go get it, and we'd have to continue to spread that out over a larger and larger area.
And so just carrying this on, again, from a policy perspective, we would need to be conscious of the add-on costs then of the new wells. And if we do get these drought conditions, as we get increasing water demands, we've also got an increase in chemical costs because of treatment of additional water. Right?
Correct. Yep,
Okay.
That's correct.
And again, back to the drought, I see that our pollution control staff has been thinking very creatively about how to address increased ammonia concentrations and have been managing to meet the requirements for that, but that the drought is again driving us to make changes to address that. Is there any danger that drought conditions are going to make us lose our peak performance award in the future?
I wouldn't think so. What Tyler and his team have done, they really found a creative way to be able to make use, I don't want to get too far in the chemistry, but to make use of the alkalinity that's there in the water just by recycling it and allowing the process to have another bite at it as it goes by, if you will. They do have an option. They can always feed an artificial form of alkalinity. It's a lot more expensive. What we're doing now does take more energy because there's more pumping, but that is still cheaper than adding artificial forms of alkalinity to the water. But I would not think that drought would be a reason that we would lose it.
I really appreciate the creativity of staff and the initiative that's taken to address these problems with the water meters being assembled in-house and what's being done at the pollution control facility. I can't say enough good things about what staff is doing to help us keep our costs down.
A lot of folks who really care and take pride in what they do, for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. John, Perul, everyone else, thank you for coming. Great report. Appreciate it. All right, move on to Public Works. Good evening, Justin.
Evening, Mayor and staff. I'd like to thank everyone tonight for the opportunity to present the Public Works operating budget. Along with me tonight, as some of you may know, I have been appointed the interim public works director as of 4 days ago. So bear with me as we go along here. But with that, the staff behind me, we have an interim operations manager who's taking over some of the role that I did, Brad Becker. He's here with us tonight. Municipal engineer, Mindy Bringelson, our transportation engineering manager, Damian Pregitzer, resource recovery superintendent, Mark Peebler, and finally, the Public Works Management Analyst, McKinley Ritter, all have a large hand in putting this document together and putting together our budget. So I want to thank them for their hard work here. And kind of continuing on the theme of the utilities, on page 102 in your budget books, we have the water distribution system. This is the system where we take care of emergency water main breaks and repairs. You have your valve testing and maintenance, your hydrant flushing and painting programs. What you see on the screen there in the middle is the graph of our current water main break status. The red dashed line is our 25-year average of water main breaks. And then the blue line that's kind of jutting around there is our current breaks for this fiscal year. So you see, we are right in line with our historical averages at the current time. The month of January was rather difficult on us. We had 9 water main breaks. 7 of those happened within 4 days of each other. So staff spent a lot of time working on those and repairing those at all hours of the night there. The other graph that's inlaid there on the lower right-hand side is the green line that you see going across the top is the national average of water main breaks for utilities of our size in the northern part of the United States. The blue graph that jumps up and down is our actual count of water main breaks per fiscal year. And then the red trend line is showing you what is going on with our trend. If you look at the recent numbers, we've remained fairly flat over the past several years. But what's interesting is the national average has slowly stepped down. Part of that is twofold. One is there's a lot more data available now to Utah State University, who does this survey about every 3 to 4 years. And the other thing that we're seeing is large investments by the entire country in their water infrastructure. So as that average steps down, I see ours step down at the same time. So again, continuing that proactive maintenance and care of our system throughout the year. Included in our budget and water distribution system is upfitting of a utility response vehicle. I'll have a photo of this in the next slide or two, but that's the first vehicle that shows up on a water main break, carries all the tools and necessary items for those crews to actually do the work. Continuing in our utilities is the sanitary sewer collection system. As I mentioned before, the utility response vehicle there in the upper right-hand part of your screen, that is the vehicle that we are replacing. It's over 10 years old now and rusting out on the body, and just it's time for it to be replaced. So this is included in our sanitary sewer response as well, because those same employees that respond to water main breaks are the same ones that will respond to a sanitary sewer overflow or other issues within the system if there's backages or blockages at any one time. We continue to utilize our acoustic testing methods. That is the yellow devices you see in the lower left-hand corner there. Those send out an acoustic wave inside of our sanitary sewer system, and the other device captures it on the other end and measures the strength of that wave. We use that to really dial in on where we need to perform our maintenance. That's going to tell us if there's a blockage. That's going to tell us if there's something in the main that we need to go look at. And part of that is using our video camera system or our jet truck to do that. And you see there a picture of our video camera system in the lower right. Our current system right now is about 8 years old and is experiencing some rapid deterioration. A lot of repairs are necessary. So we've got replacement of that in our budget this year. That's necessary because we can't really see what's going on there without utilizing a system such as that camera there. So it's a really crucial piece of equipment that we have in order to diagnose what's going on in the sanitary sewer collection system. Continuing into our stormwater permit system, this program really takes care of our MS4 permitting that we have with the state of Iowa. It's really important that we keep track of what stormwater is doing in our system. And so we have in this program some new software that's going to help us keep track of our post-construction ordinances and our post-construction inspections. There's a lot of documentation, a lot of permitting that goes on with that. It takes several years for some of these sites to develop and to get that final closeout of their stormwater work there. So we use this new system as a kind of an asset-based software to make sure we know what's going on and we can track those into the future. This program also sees high citizen participation in our rebates, such as rain gardens, rain barrels, rebates that the community comes to us and asks for funding back to help promote stormwater initiatives. So there's some increase this year in our proposed budget that takes into account the increased participation we have from our customers. Finally, something of interest, in the lower screen there, you see a remote controlled sonar boat. So what this is going to do, we have a lot of detention basins across the city. In order to tell how much silt is in those basins, because that's what they're built for. They're built to take care of that silt that comes in and keep them out of other crucial stormwater systems within the city. Traditionally, what happens is you get a person in a boat and you go out with a rod and you touch the bottom of the pool you got there and try to see how deep it is. So that's kind of a safety concern. You have expensive equipment out there. So we found this remote controlled survey boat that can actually do this a lot more efficiently, safer, and we get a better picture of what's going on because we get a topo of the entire bottom of that basin. So using that will help us make sure we know where to go and perform these maintenance activities and make sure our stormwater system's working in the proper way. Continuing in our stormwater maintenance, this is the inspections of our storm sewer intakes, manholes, and outfalls. There's 8,000 plus of these across the community. We inspect at least 10% of them, if not more, per year. Much of that happens this time of year when we're not actively plowing snow, fortunately. But then this also in the during construction season, this is the reconstruction of anything that gets damaged or areas that need attention later on. We also look at clearing of system blockages. If you think during the fall, we have leaves that fall and we try to pick them up, but sometimes you can't get to everything before it gets into the storm sewer system. So when there's blockages, this is the system and the program that staff goes out and clears those blockages to get the water off the street. And rounding out our utility program is our resource recovery system. So this system, as we all know, is in the kind of last stages of the way it is currently constructed. But recycling has seen increased participation, and we've had very good feedback from the community to not only continue that, but increase that as we move forward. So that's something that we're looking forward to as we continue with this system and into the next as well. And that includes looking at the future implementation of curbside recycling, single stream, electronics recycling, and even the drop-off that we have at the Resource Recovery Center as we look towards the future, expanding that, and how else can we continue to get that energy from the community and make sure we're recycling and diverting as much waste as possible. And we're continuing to look and update our solid waste management plan with our new partners. We'll be coming back to council with here in the next few months, maybe even weeks, to look at new partnerships and what we're going to do with municipal solid waste going forward in the future. So the next portion of the Public Works operating budget is our transportation program, which encompasses many different programs, and I'll go through these here as we look at each one individually. Starting off in administration, something that's going to happen here is we're going to kick off a search for a new Public Works director. So obviously, as you're aware, John Joyner retired last week, and so we'll have a nationwide search for his replacement and look to do that as the new leader of this work group. Administration also will continue to look at the solid waste management plans we talked before in resource recovery and continue that planning in partnership with our 2080 communities, as well as the new transfer site and where we end up with the municipal solid waste. Administration also works closely with grant application administration, looking for those funding opportunities that are outside of being funded locally, and how can we find grant opportunities or other federal options to help fund some of the things and efforts that we want to do here. And finally, there's some new city website coming out that we're having a large portion, a lot of information on the public works side about that. That's really crucial to our outreach efforts as we look towards making sure we communicate with the public of what's going on, what's upcoming, and how can we keep them informed of activities throughout the city. Our engineering portion continues on page 122. Our current design software has expired and is no longer being updated. So we're looking at some new design software. And what's really critical about this is it allows us to share it in real time with other agencies outside of the city, as well as other people within the city at the same time. So it's really important as we have consultants work on some of our design projects, we can collaborate with them on a quicker time period, and helps us get those projects out faster. Our message boards are one of the biggest tools we have for informing the public of what's going on. People see those as you drive around town. They're used for special events. They're used for construction projects. They're used for open houses, all sorts of things. And so we're beginning a phased replacement of some of those. They've been around in our system for a long time, and we've refurbished some of them, but it's time for them to start getting upgraded and to be made new again. We have proposed a 3D scanning tool, as you see in the inset there. What's neat about this is right now, if we need to survey and get data on a certain intersection, you have to have an individual go out into the intersection amongst traffic, which can be very difficult and downright dangerous in some locations. So what this tool does, it allows us to do that autonomously. It can take all the information in one time, and then we go back into the office and kind of download and piece that together. But the thing about this too is we can also use it for 3D structures. We can look, we just measured the salt pile out at our operations center. And of course that's done by hand, but this tool can come and do it in a matter of minutes for us there, so we can know how much salt we have. Just makes us more efficient when we're looking for survey data. And finally, in this, as we know, the engineering group has the projects that touch everyone's community, our roadways, and so continue our outreach to everyone to make sure that we're providing them with the timely information on what's going on and how it affects them throughout the community. Geographical Information System, or GIS, it's an interdepartmental service, but it also serves a lot of external customers as well. Things like our utility networks, contractors that utilize our utilities and look for where things are at in the community. Our snowplow map is served through our geographical information system as well. We're finally full staffed. We've got a new employee. I think we're finally full staff here in February. It's been a couple years since we've been there, so that's really helpful and beneficial. And all of our utilities are transitioning to what's called a utility network. And what that really does is, right now we have just points on a map, and they don't really have a relationship to one another. And that's the way the assets have been for as long as we've had our GIS system. But with the new utility network now, a water valve has a purpose for being on that map. If we say we shut a certain water valve, it can indicate what downstream of that might be closed. And so that's really beneficial when we start getting into things like water main breaks or emergency response. That's really crucial for us to know what's going on. So that is in the testing phase right now, and we're rolling into our sanitary and storm sewer network data this spring and into next year, as those will have the same sort of network conversion. Our traffic engineering, we are continuing with our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which is Connect 2050. That's kicked off here this winter. So it's every 5 years we go through a transportation plan. Traffic engineering also deals a lot with our traffic system capacity improvements, where we need future signals and that sort of stuff. They also handle a lot of council-directed referrals and studies. So things that come to you as a council that you want more information on, this is Damien and his staff that really work hard on those to get the information back to you. One of the really neat things that I'm excited about on this is we have a pavement asset management software that we're looking at purchasing with this. The map you see on the bottom part of the screen shows what a community might look like, and it's going to score every one of these streets in town. And that score is off a pavement condition index. We used to get this information from the Iowa DOT. Their condition index was really set towards highways. It's not really set up for community and local streets. But we will have this these sensors and this data installed in our equipment, so we can have real-time data at any one point in time. What it's going to do is it's really going to help guide us where our capital improvements go, where our maintenance money and our programs go. We can go patch a street and drive over it and see what happened to our pavement condition immediately after that. And then they're coming out with some really neat tools that involve some machine learning and AI that can help us really dial in and be most efficient with our dollars so we can put the right treatment in the right place. Our traffic operations, these are your traffic signs, your signals, your pavement markings. We have some upgrades to some of our paint trucks and our pavement grinders. We're trying to make ourselves more efficient when we send our crews out to make sure we have everything that we need in one point when we go and repaint these streets, because obviously you're out in the middle of traffic. We want to make it as quick as possible. In fiscal year 25-26, you will see widened lane markings. Right now, lane separators are 4 inches wide. So there's an impact to the budget in the municipal MUTCD has recommended 6-inch wide pavement markings now. So they will be 2 inches wider. As such, we will need more paint to do that. That's coming based off safety recommendations from them. And it's also kind of a precursor towards autonomous vehicles. Autonomous vehicles see the 6-inch wide pavement markings a lot better than the 4-inch pavement markings. So it's something that federally is coming that way. The DOT and SUDAS is all pointing to that direction for us there as well. We also have accessibility enhancements at pedestrian crossings. You can see the rapid rectangular flashing beacons there. As you see some of our high traffic, pedestrian traffic crossings there, we like to use those when they're warranted. So that way we can alert traffic that pedestrians are crossing. Continuing in your street system, we're on page 132 and 134, and this is street system maintenance and street surface cleaning. These are when you think about our patching, our street repairs, potholes, that sort of stuff. That doesn't maybe make anybody too excited. But it also includes our sidewalk safety program. As council may recall, you gave us some direction last spring to make some changes to that. So that's outlined here. We're kicking off even more of that work here this coming spring as we go through it. Included in this budget as well is upfitting of our tandem axle dump trucks. The picture in the lower center there is one of our existing tandem axle dump trucks. We have 4 of these throughout the community. They're the largest backbone of what we have for snow plowing operations. They're also what we use when we have to haul material from one place to another. So those were slated for upgrade. And during the COVID pandemic, there was all sorts of price changes and things. So we're trying to make sure we have enough money to upfit those as they come into next fiscal year. We've also budgeted for a skid loader mounted broom, as you see in the upper right. And that's kind of critical to us because there's a lot of shoveling that happens by hand when we clean out some of these holes. So it's kind of a safety thing for our employees, but it's a dual purpose as well. During the winter, when there are traffic accidents, our street sweeper can't go out because it utilizes water. And so when it's below freezing, we can't utilize our street sweeper to clean up accidents and whatnot. So a lot of time that's done by hand. And we can use this to help be more efficient as we get through those accidents as well. My absolute favorite thing that we do is snow and ice control. This year has actually been rather mild. There have been 7 events to date. We usually plan for 19. There's been 7.5 inches of accumulated snow, typically 36 inches. And we've sent 263 snow on sidewalk warnings to property owners after the little bit of snow we did have. As you can see in the graph there, the first one on the left is our snow accumulation. Typically, we're around 22 inches for this time of year. Now, I don't want to count my chickens before they're hatched because I know last year we got 20 inches of snow within 1 week. So I do not look forward to that again. And then also, I like to point out our salt usage as well. We've used 907 tons. Typically, we're around 1,500 tons, so we're not quite half there. But some things to remember there that might seem like a lot of salt, but we had a pretty major ice event before in December. We've had a lot of times these really light snow events, which still require de-icing material, even though we don't get a lot of snow with it. So we're still sitting good on all that sort of stuff. But you know, winter is still here, and we look forward to February hopefully being continue to be mild. Parking operations are on page 148. These are your parking meters, your parking lot maintenance. Not quite. I'm working on that one. I could ask Brad if it's his favorite. But on this one, we also do a lot of special event support. So this is things like road races or downtown events, ISU football games and whatnot. We still install about 20 credit card capable meters per year. And we still have the Park Mobile app that works with all of our parking meters. These new meters will provide us parking trend data, so we will know if it's utilized or not utilized. And we're really looking towards that as we continue to plan for the future of our parking operations, especially in the commercial areas. Finally, airport operations are page 154. Central Iowa Air Service continues to be our FBO. We have some fuel farm upgrades and some hangar maintenance that are going on with the operations down there. Upcoming, there's going to be some entryway improvements and drive reconstruction for the terminal, trying to beautify the area as you come into the airports. And then we're also looking at some public-private partnerships, including with our airport master plan. How can we implement some of that? Some land lease opportunities from other private companies that want to come in and do some things on the airport. We're continuing to work through some of those. Hopefully we can bring some of that to council if some of this comes to fruition and we can look at it together. But with that, that presents our operating budget for the Public Works Department, and I'd happily entertain any questions you have.
Thanks, Justin. Questions?
Justin, you mentioned that there is money for increasing the smart watershed rebates programs because we've had increased interest in those. And, I look at the numbers and they're still pretty modest, better, but modest. So are we doing anything to promote these even more? And do we have any kind of goal? Or are we just saying more is better instead of setting a goal?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I don't know if we have a goal necessarily set. It's something we could certainly look at, but I think the important thing is that we continue to share that with the community, and I think it kind of ebbs and flows with the community's desire to have these things. So while we have some that are really easily attainable and they're easy to get, we have others that I think there's a rain garden one that maybe is not being utilized very often, and we're looking at pulling that one back and doing something different with those funds. So we do continue to look at that, but I'm not certain there's a goal set that we'd say we want to meet so many here. But if we can continue to publicize it, obviously through EcoFair, through all the especially getting into with the students at schools at some of their science nights, it really helps to get in front of them. They can get in front of their parents and tell these things are going to happen. I think that's where we've seen a lot of success with that.
I hope that we do get more people interested in those programs, especially as we ramp up whatever outreach efforts the city will be doing to
Absolutely
bring people in line with the climate action plan goals. And this other question may just show my ignorance, but you were just talking about the airport and airport operations. What are we doing with that old terminal?
Damien, you know what's going on with the old terminal? I don't know that I have that.
I just realized it was still there, and I don't know why.
So the old terminal has a lot of moving pieces.
Mhm.
I'll try to summarize it the best I can. So it's one of the buildings that are part of the lease agreement with the FBO. So they have some stake in how they use that building. So it is, from our perspective, a little bit of a maintenance liability, but they're using it for the flight school. So, because in order to train pilots, you have to have places where they can take testing, and they can be private and all these other sorts of things.
They have simulators in there too.
They have a simulator in there. Yep. So
Several.
to meet all the requirements of that flight school, they need a space to do that. And we've had a lot of discussions with them to replace that with a new maintenance hangar and a new kind of flight office school that would be attached to that hangar. But as you know, like the economy, as it goes up and down, building a $3-4 million building that the FBO would be primarily responsible for a lot of the costs of, they're just not ready to do that. There's also equipment in the basement of that terminal that we need to move to the new terminal that is the FAA under their control. That is way too complicated, took way too long to explain dealing with them on those issues. But so there's a lot of moving pieces that have to come together at the same time. So once we have a real project to replace that with a new maintenance hangar, like versus where the very northwest building on the airfield is the current maintenance hangar, then I would see that old building go away. But it is a problem as far as maintaining that building.
Thanks.
Other questions?
Justin, to take you to page 103, the water main breaks continue. We really appreciate the staff that respond to those in this frigid weather. Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought that over time, as we repair water main breaks, we do that in a way, we're mapping the location of the breaks, and that we're replacing the pipes in a way that should diminish the risk of water main breaks in that location in the future. Am I correct so far?
I believe so. Yeah, I'm following you.
Okay, so hopefully over the long term, we start seeing a reduction in the number of water main breaks. Is that something that's realistic?
I believe it'd be a long term. Yeah, yes. I think you're on the right path there. And I think if you look back, if I go back to the slide here, some of that might be evident in what we see. As you can see that red trend in the lower right slowly going down. That is the number of water main breaks per year. So we do see that going down. What typically happens is water main breaks because of usually one of two reasons. One is the earth moving,
Right.
And that's the majority of them. And sometimes it's also, it can be pump changes. It can be if there's a fire demand for a fire event and a hydrant is closed too fast, it creates pressure waves within the system. And so what happens is as we repair a weak system, that water hammer usually finds the next weak spot. So it starts demonstrating to us where this didn't break before because all the pressure was going somewhere else. Now it's breaking somewhere else. So a lot of these breaks happen on what's called cast iron mains. These are
Right.
back from the probably 40s through the late 70s. Once we hit the late 70s, we transitioned over into polyvinyl chloride pipe, PVC pipe. We hardly see any breaks on those. So it's the cast iron mains that are from the 40s, 50s, and 60s where we see the majority of our breaks. Unfortunately, we have about 30 miles of 6-inch cast iron main in our system. So as we continue to work through those, I think you will eventually see things slowly trickle their way down. But until we get through that 30 miles of system, it'll probably be a while before you see a dramatic drop off.
That's a super helpful. That's the best explanation I've heard on these water main breaks. Thank you for that. Page 111 is the resource recovery. And could you give us just a little bit of perspective? We've been at this now for a few years where we're encouraging residents on a voluntary basis to bring their recyclables and food waste to a resource recovery. Could you give us your perspective or the department's perspective? How are we doing on this? I mean, I mean, the numbers here, I don't know how to think about them in the context of the overall waste in the city. And this isn't for tonight, but just to put a bookmark, and thanks, Mark, for jumping in. I would be curious, because we're always trying to compare ourselves to Iowa City. No, I'm just kidding. Other peer cities. And so I would be interested in on how effective our efforts are to encourage recycling and food waste diversion. Could you speak just a little bit more generally to give us a little more than the numbers show?
Yeah. Go ahead, Rick.
So for resource recovery and the recycling programs and implementation, as we build these programs, we've got to build the infrastructure with it. So you look at the 40-yard or 30-yard or 20-yard roll-off boxes that we've got at our facility. We do have some containers. I believe they're 6-yard from Metro Waste Authority. Looking at putting our own containers there in those locations, but having the truck to be able to run those and service those. One of the biggest pieces is education and outreach. For the last 50 years, we've been doing waste to energy. And I think a lot of people think, well, send it to resource recovery, they can pull it out. So as we're transitioning to the next solid waste method, we're able to talk to people and engage in the community, science nights, welcome fest, eco fest, or eco fair, all the different engagement opportunities that we have to talk to the public, I think is the biggest piece of that. So going through the numbers for 2024, just with paper, plastic, and cardboard, a program that really didn't exist last year.
Right.
For source separation, we collected over 130 tons of that material. So clothing, textiles, usable or unusable items. I think last I looked, we were over 8,000 pounds or 4 tons just in clothing So glass continues to go up. I believe this year we set another record at 269 tons. Household hazardous waste materials, those numbers continue to climb. So as we do better job with education and outreach and talking to the citizens and the customers, the more of that material that we're going to be bringing in and have to have the infrastructure to handle it. So it's kind of growing pains right now to make sure that we have the equipment and the staffing to be able to handle the larger volumes.
So maybe with the way we should frame it is we're sort of in a holding pattern until we reach our next sort of protocol for dealing with waste in the community. Is that probably the way to look at it?
Yes, right now for the customers that we have dropping off material of clean recycling, they're bringing that material to our facility. They're separating it themselves and hopefully putting it in the right containers. We've had some issues with contamination in the last couple weeks, but as we have the space in a new facility, the area to aggregate, to bale, and to transport some of this material out, it'll reduce our transportation costs and the amount of time that we have for staffing taking those loads to Des Moines at 1 ton or 2 tons at a time. We'll be able to take, close to 26 tons at a time of cardboard or baled material. So it's the biggest constraint right now is space.
Yeah, and I noted that the increase in cardboard. So my office is right across from one of the areas, and there are people there all the time dropping off cardboard. So going from 84 to 240 is a pretty remarkable increase. And maybe just as a placeholder, as in the future years, I would love to see how our recycling efforts compare with our peer communities. And I don't know if that data is even available from our peer communities, but that would just be a helpful data point to see, how we're doing and making progress in our recycling efforts. And final question. I'm really excited about the pavement management tool. Will that also include our shared use paths?
Yes, it can. Right now, their algorithm is really dialed into street segments. However, we did talk to them as we went through this to say this is something that we would like to look at for our shared use path system as well, to aggregate that data and have a condition index to that world to help us guide where to go there as well. So I believe that's absolutely possible.
Yeah, I think council will be really excited about having that tool available, so we're making good uses of our capital funds.
Absolutely.
Thanks for those answers.
Other questions? Just a quick observation. Is there a chance that there could be a second food waste container put out there? I happened to go this weekend and it was overflowing. And so just thinking, it's great to see people. I think it was kind of all in the center and didn't flow to the side, I think. But anyway.
Yeah, I think that's one of our biggest challenges is over the weekend. So we have staff on site till Saturday at 12 or 12:15, and then we have a night.
I went in the early mid-afternoon and it was full. So.
Yeah, so the night crew comes in Sunday night. They do a pass through there to make sure that things are cleaned up. So it's just kind of that gap without staffing. So I did go in Sunday. We put another container out in front of it, cleaned everything up. So that's one of those things is just making sure that we know about it and we kind of make a pass as we can.
So if that does happen again, just go to Ames on the go, or what would you suggest, or what?
Well, I got a text message saying that it was overflowing. So
okay, well, I can text you.
But yeah, exactly. We'll take care of it as soon as we possibly can. We try to have the containers out there and empty Saturday, just that way it can hold us over until Sunday.
Well, it's just encouraging to see people adopting that and taking it seriously. So anyway, thanks. And I just have one question. You got parking meters. Was that a dual parking meters so would you actually have 40 spaces that you'd be putting in, or is it going to be just 20 spaces? I think it's budgeted for 20 more parking meters this year.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So what that is that's actually the replacement of our parking meter heads that will accept credit cards. So it's an existing meter that we can actually use a credit card in is what we're doing.
Yeah, I think the ones out here in front are nice because there's one head for 2 spaces. I didn't
Yes.
think you were able to replace, one head and basically reduce the number.
I see what you're saying.
And cut it. I didn't know if that was possible or not.
I don't know, Brad, is that possible to do? 2 meters with one head.
See, I want to make sure he came up here and had to answer the questions.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, so that's what these are. These out here, as you mentioned, are dual space meters, and that's what we'd be replacing. So as we mentioned, I think we're buying 20, and then we have 20 that we held over from last year. So we're going to be installing those starting in the 100 block of Main Street. And they will be dual space meters. So 1 meter will take care of 2 spaces. Now you run into an odd number kind of as you get to the end where there may be a single space meter, but it will be obvious. So, yep.
And the other question is that in Des Moines, they have a central kiosk and then they have space markers, which kind of reduces the technology. It's kind of a little inconvenient, but it's also pretty slick from a standpoint of reducing it. Are we just not at a scale or big enough to really warrant something like that kind of approach?
I'd probably have Damien come up here and answer questions about the parking fund. So I think we're kind of limited with funds and that whole, parking fund and rate discussion. So I'd let Damien speak to that, I guess.
Let's bring him up here. Come on.
Yeah, put him in the hot seat.
And it could be just a matter of we don't have the scale or the funds to do it. But I just thought in terms of visually and also maintenance. But maybe if one goes down, you got your whole parking system down.
Certainly, so the kiosk, like Brad was saying, is a large step in not only like the change in operations to kind of educate the public on like that type of parking system versus kind of the biggest need that we have, the biggest gap we have for the parking system for the least amount of investment is just getting meters that take credit cards. Now, I think just in general, the parking system has been a little bit on a hold, trying to understand what the heck is going to happen or not happen with a parking ramp, with the Lincoln Way development. So we're trying to make investments that are smart in the parking system that bring in that new feature of getting a credit card, but not going into large scale changes in case we need to, deviate and go a different direction.
And this is just a wild hair, but do they make parking meters that actually have the ability to, once it runs out of time, they could take a picture of a license plate and actually log if it is basically parking in an expired space to try and reduce patrol going around and ticketing? I was just curious if that has been if that exists or not. And it's maybe too big brotherish, but I just thought we're looking for ways to try and trim costs and trying to make it more effective. I just didn't know if that even existed or not.
Well, all these smart meters are all internet connected, and they all have, depending on the vendor, some form of automated enforcement. But because we have parking enforcement and a staff, and we're already we're paying for that service, we are not buying those services as part of these meters. But I tell you what, any vendor you run into will tell you, could you do it? Yes. Is it an add-on? Usually it's some kind of extra cost. So instead of about $1,000 a meter, it could be $2,000 or something to that effect.
Got it.
And so we're not, like I said before, because we already provide that service somewhere else, we would be duplicating our efforts there.
I understand. All right. Great. Thanks. Anything else? Thanks, Justin. Appreciate the report. And thank you, staff, for coming and answering questions. And look forward to another exciting year. And the forecast is no snow is that what you're saying, Justin, for the rest of the?
Maybe a little ice.
Yeah, you got that.
That's all the farther I'll go tonight.
Oh, come on. Go out on a limb.
Get out the treatment.
Ice.
Hi, Corey.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be talking about fleet and facilities. We'll start off with fleet, which is page 252. Just briefly going over our operations. As you know, we run fleet somewhat like a business, so we have an hourly rate which our mechanics charge out as they repair vehicles. You can see that increases. We also have administrative fees, and that covers our overhead. So we're not apples to apples to a private shop, and this kind of covers that. Fuel, we're estimating keeping flat. We do have parts increase. I think you heard from Justin, since COVID, Certain items just have increased, and we're trying to keep pace with those increases. One of the things we're dealing with in administration is our fuel contract with the Iowa Department of Transportation. They asked to end that, and that will be ending at the end of February. So right now we're looking at using a combination of Iowa State University and fuel cards. We're looking at fuel cards because Iowa State doesn't have the room to allow large diesel trucks to fuel there. So we'll be looking at fuel cards and probably filling up at some of the larger gas stations in town. We'll be working on a long-term plan if that works, or if there's partnerships with Cyride, or maybe Iowa State's going to look at some different options. So we'll be in touch on that in the future. But this agreement has been in place for 30 years, so it's definitely going to be a change. This kind of shows our fuel trends. You can see that it looks like fuel is still kind of staying low and maybe even going a little lower. We saw that in the last year. This kind of shows the fuel trends kind of over the last couple of years. You know, we saw that peak kind of coming out of COVID. You can see now we're pretty stable. And so that's why we were pretty confident in our numbers staying where they're at. Hopefully, you know, there's always a chance it could go lower. I don't foresee them going much higher to impact budgets. This chart kind of shows over the years what our fuel usage has been. You can see like the gray is the B100, so that started 4 years ago. And then you can see diesel kind of dropped, the biodiesel in green, that dropped. So you see the point out, so we have biodiesel and diesel. Biodiesel is what we get from the DOT right now. Diesel is diesel fuel at our remote tanks, which is mostly used in construction equipment. So that has no bio in it, where biodiesel goes from 5 to 20, depending on the season and temperatures.
Just stay on that just for a second. I guess it's counterintuitive to me that the biodiesel would be declining. Why would that be declining like that?
It's declining because we're using the B100.
Oh, so we're just replacing with the B100.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah, and you've got to think we're using B100 in our snowplow trucks, which do not get very much for the miles per gallon. So they have a huge impact on our diesel usage.
Yep.
And you can see E85 has dropped because we went to hybrid police vehicles, and hybrid police vehicles can't use E85. Before that change, they did use E85, so that's why you're seeing that.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Thanks.
So this kind of shows our B100 and our percentages. I think you can see we've kind of hit that leveling out stage of this, where it's going to be kind of weather dependent. Also depends a little bit on the type of biodiesel we're getting, what it's made from, and how it interacts with the temperatures. But we expect this to stay, that percentage to stay pretty close to that 30%. But diesel's the total amount of diesel is more dependent on Justin's snow graph than anything else in the city. So the more snow we have, the more diesel we're going to use. So that's not something we can necessarily control.
On that prior slide, the one with all the different fuel forms.
Yeah, this one?
Yeah. That's gallons on the left.
Yes.
Is there, I mean, I suppose there is, like an estimation for if electric were replacing an equivalent in gallons of fuel.
Yeah.
Is that a line that would be interesting? I mean, I think
we're going to start getting close to that, where we can start to do it. I think we've been so small now.
Sure.
There's really no impact,
I
but
see.
as you'll see in some slides, as we increase that amount of electric, we'll start to see an impact
Okay.
on gasoline.
Sure.
And, if you look in kind of the highlights, you can see our fuel usage has dropped pretty much over the time.
And so I know you can't put electric on here because it doesn't use gallons, but you could put if it were
equivalent gallon.
Yeah, equivalent.
we could do
to see it. Yeah.
equivalent to kilowatt
Yeah,
hours.
something like that.
That'd be interesting
It would be
data point.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yep, and that's something we'll start to get more of as we move forward.
Cool. Yeah, thank you.
So go back one slide. So the B100 is the one that uses that in the Optimus system. Is that right?
Yes.
So I think I heard you say that we're pretty much reaching what expected is going to be going forward.
Yeah.
So is there a reason why we can't be working towards 100% use of B100 if if all the vehicles were converted to the Optimus system?
Yes, if Optimus had a system for all the other vehicles,
Oh,
they do not at this time.
so what vehicle? Isn't a side ride going to using the Optimus system
Yeah.
too?
Yeah, and we mentioned that, that they're going to be piloting it. So overall city usage would go way up with Cyride.
Uh-huh.
For us right now, Optimus is only focused on like the heavy duty vehicles like dump trucks and things like that.
So
Now,
what else uses the
So there'd be
Light duty trucks.
light duty, more medium duty, probably trucks, all the construction equipment, loaders, backhoes, bobcats, things like that.
Thank you. That's
Mowers, a lot of mowers use diesel.
Got it.
So hopefully that's something they explore or somebody picks it up. And
it's just not cost effective for them to probably create that kind of system. Probably.
yes,
too.
yeah. So as we've talked about a little bit over the last few months, as we've ordered vehicles, we have 6 all electric. So that's 2 trucks, 2 SUVs, 2 cars. Right now we have 4 more trucks on order. We expect that to continue to increase, especially in the light duty area. As we talked about, we've got that B100 on 12 or snowplow trucks, and that's probably the max we can do right now. Cyride is piloting the B100. We're kind of assisting them with that. Hybrids, as we just saw recently, we expect those to increase the numbers as police now gets back into hybrids, which is good for them and us and the city overall. And you probably have seen a few smaller trucks around for like inspections. Those are hybrid, small trucks. So those fit a great need for the city. You get the flexibility of a truck, but it's hybrid, so you're getting better fuel mileage than we would have gotten from a small car previously. So the future, we're going to continue to work on that climate action plan implementation. This is our 3rd year of using some of our interest money from the reserve accounts to help departments get into electric or hybrids. There are some challenges out there. I'm sure you've all seen electric vehicle production is being cut kind of across the board, or a lot of the major manufacturers are changing their plans on electric. Hasn't impacted us yet. I think we'll still be able to get them, but it does limit the amount of choices we're going to have probably in the future. And then there's also a possibility of that electric vehicle tax credit. There was an Inflation Reduction Act. If the federal government takes that away, that we're eligible for that now. The IRA actually allowed us to be eligible, so that might go away too. So that means more costs to us than we were anticipating. And that is it on the fleet side. Any questions?
Yeah. Do you on electric? Can you comment on what you're seeing in terms of serviceability? Is there any issues that are being seen, or is it reduced? Because one of the things we've been told is electric is less maintenance, less downtime. But are they reliable? And same question for the hybrid.
Yeah. On the electric side, we haven't seen very many issues at all. And now we actually have trucks that are actually in use. They're actually used for work. Very little issues. We just remind people to keep them plugged in during the winter, especially if they're outside, because it'll keep the battery warm. So that's a big issue. If you see the news where people are pushing their electric car because it got cold, it's because it wasn't plugged in. So we're making sure we have plug-ins if they're outside. But other than that, it's just probably wiper blades and tires for the foreseeable future. Most batteries are covered for 10 years, which we treat as standard life of a vehicle is our 10-year mark. So we shouldn't have to deal with any battery replacements, things like that. Hybrids, we're seeing especially in police side, huge maintenance cost savings. We've never replaced brakes on a hybrid police vehicle, no matter the length, because they use regenerative braking, which helps save the brake pads. And then also oil changes go from normal gas vehicles that we had to buy during COVID You're looking at 3,000 to 5,000 miles. We have to make sure we do an oil change. We're getting 3 times that with a hybrid. So we're definitely seeing those savings being passed on the maintenance side. And then, we'll start to work on comparing that, to the cost of electricity and gas and things like that. As we increase the number, I think there's a good opportunity to really start showing those impacts better.
So the Cyride is putting in a fire suppression system over their electric vehicle servicing bay because of the fact that if you have a battery fire, obviously it's a whole different animal. Is that something that has to be considered when you start servicing electric vehicles in our fleet area, or is that not? The batteries aren't that big to worry about that.
We're not servicing any batteries is how we're treating it. So if there's a battery issue, we're not going to treat it because we want to have those kind of precautions in place. But that may change in the future as you add more electric.
Have we retired many hybrids or EVs yet?
I think we had our first hybrid that we had to retire due to battery failure. I think it was the original Ford Escape from the early 2000s. So
Wow.
I think it was maybe 15 or 16 years old. And they don't sell the OEM batteries to replace it. And we usually don't feel comfortable putting aftermarket things like that. So it was a motor pool vehicle. We had rotated it to motor pool. But we still have Priuses, I think, that are older than that are in a motor pool still. So yeah, we've seen really good life from them. Okay, we'll jump to facilities, which you'll go backwards to page 252. So one of the things is key card access is being expanded in city buildings. So they're coming onto the same system we have here at City Hall, fire stations. So we're going to hopefully every city building eventually will use the same key card system, except for a few of the highly secure buildings like the water plant and power plant. I've been, as you know, assisting with the plaza. Hopefully we'll see some progress on that and have some more discussions in the near future. I'm assisting with the new animal shelter and fire station 2 relocation. So you'll probably see me here in the near future on those projects as well. The auditorium HVAC is under construction. You might see the lifts and things like that in the west hallway. So they're continually working on that. That should be online for this summer with their new air conditioning system, which will be great for them. Paint and carpet at City Hall, as you saw, we've done a lot of the hallways, conference rooms. We did the police hallways. We're going to do the next phase, which is kind of all the office areas, which is carpet based, but also painting, removing wallpaper. And that begins on February 24th. So you'll probably see a lot of information as we shuffle people around and where people need to go. We'll be moving staff out of their offices to temporary areas. We ask for everyone's patience. So future projects, the transition plan for ADA is getting updated, so that'll have impacts on lots of our buildings. So we'll have to see. There's probably a lot of low-hanging items that we can take care of, but there might be some bigger items that we need to discuss. Once the carpet and paint's done, we're going to look at updating all the signage, making it ADA throughout City Hall. We asked for some funds to replace blinds in City Hall. So we replace vertical blinds with roller blinds throughout the building, exterior windows. We're working on the retrofitting municipal buildings contract that had our first kickoff with a firm under contract. This also includes vehicle charging. So they'll kind of look at the buildings and tell us if they think we need to make major upgrades, maybe based on the amount of vehicle charging we need in the future. We're finishing the office flex space on the second floor, which will have 6 workstations for staff. And then we always continue to work with other departments on projects. And as buildings get bigger or improved, staff will help with that. Right now we are short-staffed. Our new building maintenance person, became the new street supervisor. So we're going to go back out to get another building maintenance position filled. But that person's continuing to help, and John Forth, who retired, is coming back part-time to assist.
Corey, I have a question on the blinds. So this is an old building and old windows. Have we looked into more energy efficient blinds to help with that line item?
Yeah, so the roller shades are a lot more efficient, and you can kind of choose the percentage, the amount of sunlight you want to come through the windows. So we'll be looking at blackouts, maybe in certain areas like conference rooms, things like that. So they'll be more efficient than the vertical blinds. As you've seen, the vertical blinds are starting to get really brittle because they're original to the building. We have put the roller shades in a few of the office areas, and people seem to enjoy them much better, blocking the light, maybe more filtering the light without, the kind of two, you have to do the two operations with vertical blinds too.
And then at some point, would we think about replacing some of the windows?
Yeah, and that'll be in the retrofitting municipal buildings project that our consultant's working on.
Okay.
Part of that is the building envelope. What's our roof? What are our windows, doors, things like that. And then that'll be, they'll have all these projects that we could do. But then it's what's the best bang for your buck?
Right.
Where are you going to get those energy savings? So they might say eventually you need to replace windows and then you would do this, but is it cost effective versus maybe updating your HVAC system?
Right.
So that's where we'll come back and maybe make a list and say, here's what we think makes sense for buildings.
That's right. Thank you.
Other questions? Just a comment. I mean, these windows, I think, were all replaced when the building was renovated.
Yes.
And so it's not like they're, I know you said they're old, and they're, I think, 30-some years old. So I mean, they're maybe old, but they're not original to the building, which would be like a whole lot older. So
yeah.
essentially.
No, but the last thing original to the building besides the walls would be the HVAC system for the auditorium that'll be coming out probably in a couple months.
Yeah.
So the heating system for the auditorium is original to the building.
But there's a lot of glass on this building. I mean, we could really improve the energy efficiency if we swap that. I think some of these windows. I mean, that we'll look at that when the consultant.
Yep. They'll have all kinds of information. We've already kind of seen kind of their benchmarking and uploading all of our utility information. So I think we'll have great information to make educated choices.
Yep. Good.
It'll be fascinating to see the costs and the savings and or the lack thereof voice of experience in terms of analyzing things. But anyway, I think it'll be good for the consultant to go through, analyze, and provide the data, and then make decisions.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Anything else we can ask Corey?
You want me to stump him?
Sure.
So Corey, I see that your department is maintaining an attractive city hall and veterans memorial. Are we still selling stones for the veterans memorial?
I believe so,
Oh,
but I can't remember the last time we had one made.
so maybe that's stumping him. I don't know. I'm just curious because I know we haven't really talked about that, and every time I drive by there, I think I wonder if we're
Yeah, I
still.
think there's a form you fill out, and then they'll send the brick off to. But I think it was probably a couple of years ago the last time we had a request.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
All right. Now for the really good stuff. For the good stuff.
What were your expectations?
All right. All right. Last one of the evening. I'm not going to reference pages because we cover a few different areas throughout the book, but they'll be referenced to the top of each one of our slides here. So the first division of the presentation tonight is utility customer service. So that's our staff that accepts customer payments for utility bills and also sells bus passes and a few other things, collects parking tickets.
One of the things that we modified about 3 months ago was the hours that we staffed collections for that area. So we increased our staffed hours from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. There's a couple reasons we did that. The first reason is we wanted to provide accessibility to customers who aren't there to make it during the day, which worked out well. Some numbers that I'm passing along. So we've served 44 customers through the quarter. I think that will increase as customers become aware that we're open at 7 o'clock. Susan did a great job helping us get that information out there. We're still working on, it'll become more well known that we're open at 7. We had 117 phone calls. One of the other things that we utilized some of this time for was processing some payments and doing some other processes throughout the day that allowed us to do training as a staff. So our customer service staff deals with a lot of difficult situations, and so we provided some opportunities to do de-escalation training. We've been doing mental health first aid training for all of our staff. So I think that was a 7-week course. And then we've also been doing some DISC training or behavioral and communications method training for them. So really we're focusing on, I think that job is becoming increasingly difficult. As you can imagine, dealing with disconnected customers, it really is, I think, one of the more difficult positions in the city in terms of dealing with the public. And so we're just trying to provide the resources to them that makes maybe their job a little bit easier on a day-to-day basis. So kind of a new experiment for us. We're in our second quarter of that, and I think we'll conclude that at the end of the next quarter and see how we think we did. So also the employees like it because they're off a little bit early on Friday for half of them. So a win-win, I think, for us. Beginning next year, we're going to also try and improve some of our communication methods. So I'm not sure how many of you receive your bill electronically. It comes essentially as a text file, so it's a little bit difficult to understand. We have a lot of people who get it electronically and then also get a paper copy, which isn't necessarily achieving the climate action plan, isn't efficient for us, costs us more. And so what we're hoping to do in the next fiscal year is to work with our vendor to create a PDF that's then mailed out, or I guess sends a link so you can access your bill via PDF. The hope is that more and more customers will start to move to receive their bill electronically if they know they can get it quicker because it doesn't process through the mail, looks exactly like the bill you would receive in the mail, and then of course costs us less to avoid the postage. So that's we think it'll be about $5,000 one-time cost, and then maybe about 11 cents per bill, but we're still working with our vendor to figure that out. So
can you get this question from time to time from individuals? Can you review what options there are for people to pay their bills besides, like me, old person, writing a check and then actually bringing it in and dropping it off? What are options exist right now?
yeah, we take, obviously you can put it in the mailbox. That's actually good lead in to the next slide. So we moved our mailbox, big hit with the public who didn't like the previous spot when the building or the plaza was renovated or started the renovation across the street. So you can drop it in the box, you can drop it off, you can walk in and drop it with our staff. You can send it in by mail, and then also you can pay online. We have different payment methods. I think you can pay by Venmo now. So we're trying to find payment methods that suit the people that we're serving. So I think, like I said, another communication method, we're just trying to meet people where they're at and provide the ability to pay in a way that they seem more familiar with.
How about auto pay? Is that available now already?
Yep, that's also available too. We actually changed the form. So when you sign up now, there's a little section that says, I prefer, kind of defaults to auto bill and auto pay. And then you kind of deselect if you don't want that. So we're just trying to encourage people.
Someone wants to do it and they're already a customer, they can just go online. They have to come in and do.
Yeah, you can go online. So actually the next slide I have is this is a change in our form process. So it used to be if you went to our website, we had a start service, a modify my service, a whole bunch of different options. And so our customer service staff worked with Susan and our website provider to limit the number of options. So now you click what you want to do in terms of your service, pay, or excuse me, set up service, change service, stop service, that type of thing. And it walks you through the process. So more of a singular form process instead of a multi-pronged approach to the determining what you want to do, if that makes sense.
So if I want to go in and have auto bill pay, I would say change service. Is that what I would do?
I think you can go on, you can create a profile online and sign up that way.
I just, frankly, I think there's more and more individuals that would really, value that. Maybe you already have a lot that are doing it, but maybe I'm hitting the people that are just don't know. But it's just, I think it's a great transition for customer service because people are just getting used to it. They want to just have it taken care of and not worry about it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those communication things. We're just trying to get people to sign up when they come in for service, like it's the standard now. So,
thank you.
The last item we have for the upcoming fiscal year is you heard some conversations, or you have heard from Don about AMI and John Dunn about the conversion of those meters. An important part of that is providing the customers with the information. So that really triggers their usage. And so we want to make sure that we're providing that information so they can make a decision in terms of when they're spending those dollars on electricity. So, we've talked about super off-peak, and so really what we're working with is that group to make sure that we're providing that communication on the usage, and then being able to affiliate a dollar cost associated with that usage. And so as part of that conversion to AMI, we'll have a portion where we're trying to coordinate and tie together when your usage is and how that's affecting your bill. So that'll be a big process for us, in the next couple of years. All right. The next division we have is IT. One of the things that was noted in the budget is we decreased our staff from 10 to 9 for the upcoming fiscal year and for the adjusted budget. And part of the reason for that is we've had a vacant position, which we've had challenges in filling. But the other thing that this graph attempts to show is that we're seeing a decrease in the number of tickets. And the reason for that is we're using automation to respond to customers, primarily employees, ticketing. So this is a graph of 2 years worth of ticketing. We just started the system back in, it would have been January 1st, 2023, but the graph shows you can see a linear regression downward. And so it just made sense this year as we were looking at our budget and looking at the demands for our customers that we start reducing staff and using automation and other electronic services to serve our customers. So this is the position. You can see there was an open position. There was a systems analyst that we removed and went down to 9. This last year, I think it was in November, we fully switched to the ICN. So we improved our service from 1 gigabyte to 2 gigabytes. We believe that ICN provides a stable connection. They also provide some additional security services like denial delivery of service, which blocks repeated attempts to flood our traffic and prevent people from accessing our network. So they do a great job for us. We've been really happy with the service. It's significantly cheaper than our other alternatives. We got bids from, I think, 2 other private vendors. It was about a fourth of the cost. So we've been really thrilled with the service and the improvement of security. We're in the midst of converting our phone system. We use Black Box right now. It's a voice over internet protocol phone system. It lacks a lot of the features that maybe are more prevalent in current phone systems. So that will be a significant impact to the organization. One of the things that will be really important is its integration into Teams. As more people use Microsoft Teams for communication, we plan on integrating that through whoever our selected vendor is. The other additional thing we'll do is we're going to try and push people to move away from your traditional desk set on your phone. So we're going to encourage you to use a Bluetooth device attached to your computer, use a mobile device with an app that accepts phone calls, tablets, or just for some of our employees, just make a call through your computer. And so we're really trying to, kind of move towards what the future of phone is. And we've seen a lot of good examples, from some of our peers. So again, we recognize that some people will want a handset and they'll want to continue to use a handset. But we think those people will be few and far between. The last item we have is this is an example of a multi-factor authentication key. So this is a UB key. It comes in a whole bunch of different vendors. You plug that into your USB, you log in, and then you tap it physically with your finger. And so you won't be able to log into your computer without being physically present. There's a number of our cybersecurity providers and recommend utilization of these. It's currently used by police and legal, but we're going to be implementing that probably by the end of this fiscal year for all of our users. Next item is purchasing. In the next fiscal year, we're going to be hopefully including public improvements in Ames bids. So we use Ames bids for a lot of our bidding processes. We just haven't used them in the past for public improvements. And so that'll be a big step forward, I think, for our purchasing team. And I think we'll provide a little bit more transparency and allow us a little bit more control of the purchasing process. Next item. We have a relatively new purchasing department. We have Karen Server, who's been there, I think 20 years or so. The rest of our staff is growing, I think, in the profession. You can see Amanda Moore there on the left, again, one member of the year of our state association. And then Quinn and Jill both received scholarships of $500 for continuing education. So I think this group really works well together. They're all relatively new, but I think they're excited about the opportunities that present themselves there. It's a picture of a bid that we took. This was for the Indoor Aquatic Center. You can see there's a lot of bid packages, obviously a lot of interest in that. There's been some large projects undertaken in that department, including water and pollution control facility, which is about $54 million single bid, single contract. So we believe that's probably the biggest or the largest contract the city's ever undertaken through purchasing. Last item. This is, again, Amanda. She manages our P card. We finally got the highlight for this one is we got our new logo on the P card. So pretty excited about that. That was a multi-year process, but we've been actively utilizing the P card, and we think there's going to be likelihood be some changes to that program in the future, but we continue to monitor that with the number of staff. All right. This is finance, admin, and budget. So this is where Nancy and I would fall under here. This last year, we implemented electronic routing system for the AP process. So I'm sure you're probably not familiar with the city routed paper copies of invoices throughout the city by our messenger service. And then we gathered those signed copies, then we scanned them into electronic document management system. Not necessarily the most efficient way. A lot of people were comfortable with that, but we're already scanning them in to start the process. So this simply makes kind of the process more electronic, moves things along faster, and is also another security measure in that all invoices are sent to our accounting department prior to going to the individual department. So just another form of security as we work through making our invoices payable. I think one of the things that our accounting services division does is performs or completes the annual comprehensive financial report. They've been working really hard, again, relatively new staff. 2 years ago, the audit was completed in May. That's longer probably than is acceptable, I think, in most circumstances. This last year, it was finished at the end of January 31st. This year, we beat it by 3 days, and we'll be presenting that in February, but we continue to make improvements with staff who becomes more familiar with the organization. Also in the next year, we'll be reviewing and revising our policies. We have a number of policies that are revised on a regular basis, but don't, I think, get the whole comprehensive look. And so some of those are investment policy, our purchasing policy, our P card policy, our travel policy, all the things that affect kind of our daily operations that I think we just need to take a comprehensive look at to make sure they're in alignment with some of our peers. And of course, Nancy's favorite, the program budget. Nancy continues to do a great job with this. Many of you have seen Patty, I think she's here tonight, helping Nancy support this process. And so I think for the first time in a while, we're fully staffed, and I think we're going to have opportunity to do some additional work on the budget in terms of looking at performance indicators, making sure we're following best practices. But Nancy's done a great job with that. But another set of hands never hurt to making sure we're following in line with everybody else. All right, the last one. The finance department also helps with economic development and debt service. The top left circle here, that's the North Dayton subdivision. I think we've mentioned that a number of times, that this will be the first year that we'll be making a TIF rebate payment to the developer, along with Barilla. And then the last bullet point or slide there is we started using a service to help forecast debt a couple years ago. So that's a service called Debt Booking. Coincidentally, they also help manage some of our new revised accounting policy in terms of subscriptions and leases. So I think the highlight is that we're really trying to use the technology that's available to avoid some of the more burdensome processes in terms of preparing the annual financial report and forecasting debt. And that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Questions?
Corey, could you speak to the level of interest that we're receiving in terms of the bidding? Some of these bids, it seems like we're not receiving many bids, and that concerns me from the competitiveness of the bids. And so do you have any sort of high-level comments about trend lines you're seeing in bids?
Yeah, I don't know that I can answer that question directly. The thing I would say is we recognize that there has been a decrease in a number of some of the bids. We've had a lot of conversations in terms of looking at, does a purchasing cooperative make sense? So, there's a state bid, and then there's a Sourcewell is another prominent cooperative purchasing agreement. Do participating in some of those organizations make sense if it's something that we're not getting a lot of bids from? And so we're always looking for the best price. How we get that, I think maybe changing, but using Ames bids was certainly the first step forward in trying to make sure that the information's widely available to the public and complete. So
let me ask the question perhaps differently. So is there a way of interfacing with our peer communities to see, are they experiencing a similar decline in bids, or is it sort of us?
No, we could.
It's across the board.
Yeah, well, I think the state organization, there's a state organization for purchasing for public agencies. That would probably a way that we could engage in conversations and find out if we're at least meeting what we're seeing across the state. That's probably in all likelihood, the easiest way to do that.
I mean, I think that would be a really helpful data point if there's a way of accessing that information and getting back to the council with that. Because if it turns out that the decline in bids is more of an idiosyncrasy with us, then I think we'd want to ask some questions. Are there things that we could do to attract more bids? Because then we benefit from having a more competitive bidding environment. So if that's something that you could
That's a great question.
pull back for us, that would be super.
Yeah, we can follow up on that.
Yep, thank you.
Are you talking about construction, or are you talking about just purchase of materials, or what were you thinking about?
Yeah, so on construction bids, and it's fairly anecdotal because I've been looking at these for 11 years, and it just seems like there's a decline, but I don't have any empirical data. So this is sort of a subjective opinion on my part, but it's only in the construction. And it'd be interesting to see if that was in other areas, because we really don't see up here the purchasing of pens or computers or other things. So we don't get into the weeds on that.
Yeah.
Well, I think that it also would fall back to the consultants to be advising. I think that's their responsibility to understand what the marketplace is, what are there other projects bidding of similar size or on the same day? Is it, regional in nature? So I think that it's probably, when you talk about, that's why I was asking about, like, if it's just purchasing for electric, spools of wire, it's one thing versus, construction, and maybe you're referring to the wastewater treatment plant where we only got like, 2 bids. I think that project should have been very, very attractive to a number of people because of the size of it, So I think it's just maybe asking our staff to make sure that consultants are aware. We're looking to you to help us. They can't guarantee the bids are going to be brought in, but they can go out and just test the market, find out and that's where I think it's a credit to Story Construction at CM. They really beat the bush and got a huge number of bids on all those bid packages. And I believe that we saved a lot of money, cost-wise because of that.
Yeah, and I hadn't thought about that. And Corey, you could tease this out. Certainly, I agree with the mayor on projects like the Fitch Family Aquatic Center, but probably the majority of our contracts don't have a consultant. They're paving a road or some project where we're just basically throwing the bid out and hoping we get some good, the tide brings in some good bids. But that bid in particular you're mentioning was devastating. That was a shocker.
The wastewater treatment plant.
Yep. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Other questions? Anita?
I wondered about back under IT, there is the item there about cybersecurity and these weekly status reports and the CISA reports. And maybe this is a question about whether or not we ever have a chance to see what that process is like, thinking about that this is a time when everyone is very concerned about AI and hacks. And I mean, everything seems to be escalated in terms of the ability to get into systems and to get folks information. How much can you tell us about what that approach is? And if you don't know, perhaps that's something that we can get at a future meeting.
Yeah. So we have a couple entities that provide our cybersecurity support. So one of them is our insurance company. They provide cybersecurity insurance, and they provide an annual evaluation of our system. The other one is CISA, and I can't remember what it stands for right now, but they provide weekly logs. And so those are things that we review on a weekly basis, and they're looking in the public IP space what's available. I will admit I'm not our IT expert, but
he's here.
He's here.
Is he? Thank you, John. Brent, do you want to respond to that for us?
He's probably waiting to see how you can hang yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Now he's going to correct me.
Hey, Brent. Good to see you.
Okay, thank you.
CISA is the governmental agency. We get a weekly report which lists the vulnerabilities: critical, high, medium, and low. Critical and high are the ones you really don't want. Medium, we have some, but there's always a judgment about usability and security. We do have the annual review with our ICAP, the cybersecurity provider. We alternate that with CISA reviews. ICAP is typically more about the structure of how you implement security, and CISA is more about penetration testing and actually testing the systems on a higher level than the weekly report.
Mm-hmm. And I see our estimated has been and adjusted has been 0.10%. So I assume that's a really good rating and that our processes are working as they're intended to. Is that correct?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
Again, those critical and highs are super important, and we proactively make sure we're out of the headlines.
Okay. Thank you for doing that.
So can you just explain in layman's terms, what kind of systems do we have in place? Because I'm familiar with, I'm on a board where this entity did get infiltrated, and it just wreaked havoc essentially on databases. It wreaked havoc on operations. By the way, it's not the city of Ames. Just curious, do we have different layers? I know that Tim's also asked this question before in terms of water and the sewer plants and power plant. Can you just describe what that is, and there are things that we should be doing more so to bolster that, or you think we're at a good level?
I think your point about layers is a good model. We have a firewall that protects the city from attacks. We've moved to ICN, the IO Communications Network. As part of that, we have the DDoS protection, which Corey talked about, which means that the state of Iowa is blocking upstream of attacks even before they come to the city's network.
Okay.
These are good things. Additionally, on the client computer, like you have here, there's a CrowdStrike software that is integrated with the state of Iowa. We made that move based on your idea. Thank you. And that's been implemented for at least a year now, so that if there's any attacks or potential attacks, we get email and phone calls from the state of Iowa, depending on how severe the attack is.
And then once in a while we'll get this, this invoice is due from a person that we know. Is that something that is hard for someone to? Recently, it came from someone that I think we probably all know, and I texted the guy and said, no, that I got hacked essentially. So is there, are we protected from being hacked to have stuff going out to people that we might know, first of all? And then secondly, is there any way to try and sniff that out, or do you have any points to be careful on?
Definitely should be careful. The Office 365 license we have has some amount of spam protection that monitor or routes those bad emails into the spam folder. Additionally, we have another product from Cisco that looks at the communication going out and will block requests or routing of traffic to bad websites. So there's, again, several layers going on there.
Well, that's reassuring, and I know that you're doing everything you possibly can, and it's just like, boy,
But this is making me nervous because I keep getting these emails from John asking me to send him gift cards. And I've been sending them just because they come
Well, those
from
are
there. I shouldn't be doing that.
those are legitimate. Where are they?
I'd be sending these. I've been sending $1,000 of gift cards.
I feel like email's always, it's never going to be perfect. So there's always user vigilance is very important.
It's just funny that we get these emails from the mayor asking us for gift cards.
You do not.
It is. One other final thing is that what's the training like? Is there training when staff is coming on about passwords and all of those kinds of things, and how to keep their information secure, and how to make sure that they're not the source for allowing that infiltration to happen?
Every spring and fall, IT is part of the new employee orientation, and we do a 20-minute presentation about how to be a good city employee on computers. We cover all the topics you're talking about. As part of our last cybersecurity review with ICAP, there was a recommendation to have this education for all city employees. So we'll work with HR and find a good way to do that.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, Brent, as long as you're up here. Multi-factor authentication. Now, we've already been doing that for our off-site use of Windows or Microsoft 365. Are we going to be needing to use what are they, Yukio?
The YubiKey?
Yeah. the hard key, as opposed to the password MFAs and texting and that sort of thing that we've been using?
So the first thing you described was email reading offsite, meaning outside of City Hall and city buildings. And you're right, we did MFA for that for the past, 2 to 5 years. The one thing that is a new project is when you're logging into a Windows computer within the city network and outside of the city network, you'll have to have the YubiKey or another Microsoft Authenticator phone app to prove that you are the person logging into that city computer. will not be rolled out to iPads or Mac OS devices. This is a Windows scope.
Thank you.
Other questions for Brent? I do want to thank you because there's times I get weird stuff and I send it to you and I send it to one of your coworkers and you get back to me within a few minutes. I really appreciate that because like I don't know what to do. All I know is I don't click and open things unless Brent says it's okay, you can open it. So essentially, but
He
it
got
is
trained by the English department and all the people who didn't know what they were doing
Oh.
with those emails.
because we honestly we just don't want to do something that's gonna make your job more complicated and headachy. And I think we're all kind of skittish from knowing what goes on. But anyway, thank you for your. I personally do appreciate it. And also, how do I get my iPad to work and how do I get my phone to sync? It's iPad from the city. But thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any questions for Corey? Let's go ahead and see if we can stump him with something else.
Brent can stay up here then.
Anything else? All right. I think that concludes the budget presentations for tonight. So with that, we don't have any dispositions of communication to council. Council comments. Gloria, you want to start?
I always enjoy hearing from the departments, seeing what they're doing. It makes me feel really good about our staff and our city. And I just want to thank everybody for maintaining that high standard, that excellence through people.
Thank you. Bronwyn?
Nothing for me tonight. Thank you.
Nita?
Nope. Just echo the thanks to staff. Mhm.
Yeah, I'm really cognizant as we go through this budget process this year more than ever about the beauty of having individual cities. We make these decisions and it's not a cookie cutter. Dubuque will do something different than Ottumwa, and we're not going to tell them what to do. And this is beautiful. And we'll try some things, and some things we'll try and won't get it right. But that's the beauty of our home rule system. And I have a greater awareness of this this year in particular. So appreciate the hard work that goes into this. Looking forward to the next couple nights.
Rachel?
Thanks to staff, but nothing else.
Yeah. And probably all of us have read the introductory letter that Steve writes. Thank you, Steve, for that. That's really helpful to kind of calibrate and have the some high points to be looking for. And I think also bringing to attention that we have declining revenue from the state of Iowa, which we've known about, and will be. I just have an immense amount of confidence in staff and Steve's leadership in terms of getting through what could be coming our way, but we got to plan accordingly. And I think this budget reflects integrity and seeking to be forthright with our taxpayers and delivering outstanding service for the best price. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn for tonight.
Move to adjourn.
All right, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we will see you tomorrow night, same time.
Thank you.